Jason Grows Close with MFK Game Calls, and this is going to be an instructional video on the MFK Diaphragm Howlers. We've already got several videos up of the more advanced sounds such as female whimpers, pup distress, learning some of the other howls like lone howls, the challenge howls, etc. But today, after a lot of requests on our Facebook page and on our website, I wanted to do a video that's pretty much Diaphragm Howling Basics 101. I wanted to cover taking the call out of the can, fitting it to your mouth, how to properly put it in your mouth. If you need to trim the call some, which some people do, I actually trim my calls just a little bit, and I'll cover that here shortly. The tongue placement on the call for the different sounds, such as howls, where I put my tongue when I'm barking, for pup distress, how much tongue pressure I'm using for each of those sounds, and also care of the call when you're not using it. That's very important to the life of these calls. So sit back, enjoy this. If you're new to diaphragm calling on the predator side, hopefully this will help you out a little bit. We've had a lot of requests for this on our Facebook page at MFK Game Calls and also on our website. And if you guys have any more questions that I happen not to cover today, feel free to let us know and we'll try to cover that in a video as well. But sit back, enjoy, and I hope this helps you guys out a little bit and learn to howl on one of these MFK Diaphragm Howlers. First off, I'm going to start out by taking the call out of the box and showing you how to place it in your mouth the proper way. I get a lot of questions on which way that the call goes in your mouth. Now, a lot of you guys are new to diaphragm calling, and that's okay. I've been using them for years and years, and I remember when I first started, I didn't have a clue. I went to Walmart, bought a cheap turkey call. I didn't have a clue how to use it, but luckily I had some brief instructions on the back of the call, and I figured it out, and here we are today. But I know when you're first learning to use these calls, it can be a little intimidating. It's a totally different concept than some of your other calls, like hand calls, like your close reed, open reed. With these calls actually going in your mouth, learning how to put them in your mouth properly is key to getting the sounds out of these calls that we're getting. Call I'm going to be demonstrating with today is the Pretty Deadly Howler. I went in and grabbed this one out of the box. This is the same call that you guys get when you place an order. This is actually our beginner call. The Pretty Deadly Howler is a single reed caller. But keep in mind when I'm doing these instructionals today that with the single reed howler, the Pretty Deadly, the tongue placement, how I blow on the call, that's all the same for all the howlers. The only thing that's going to change as you increase the reeds is the air pressure it takes to use those calls. The Pretty Deadly Howler, it's basically our beginner call. We have the 2-reed pup, the 2-reed competition howler, the elite howler. Those would be classified as beginner to intermediate calls. And then you have your 3-reed adult and your 4-reed old dog howler. And those would be more advanced calls, but they're really not that hard to use. Once you figure out how to use the diaphragm calls, you'll be proficient anywhere from a single reed all the way up to a 4-reed howler. The only thing that's going to change is the tone of that call. It'll get deeper as you increase the reeds, and it will take just a little bit more air pressure on those. With the beginner call, the Pretty Deadly call I'll be using today, it's a single reed. The only thing that's going to be lacking on is the barks. With a single reed, it's a little harder to get those raspier barks that I like. But the howls on this call are second to none. I mean, I would compete with this call if it was just howls alone. I would compete with this call hands down. And the barks on it aren't bad. Like I said, I compete a lot. We compete in the World Calling Championships and stuff, and everything has to be perfect when you're doing that. So I usually step up to like a 2-reed competition howler or a 3-reed adult or a pup howler, something like that. It just gets a little bit more raspier barks, but I'll show you when I demonstrate this. You can get some pretty dang good barks out of this Pretty Deadly howler. Okay, we're going to take this call out of the can, and I'm going to show you how to put it in your mouth the proper way. First off, on this call, it's a single reed howler. So there's only one reed in this call, unlike the 2, 3, and 4 reed howlers that we offer here at MFK. On this call, what you're gonna have to look at is on the call frame, there's a small bump. This small bump right there, that's what you want to put down in your mouth. That will always go down when you're putting it down towards your tongue when you're putting it in your mouth. On the 2, 3, and 4 reed howlers, they will also have this call bump right here. But if something happens, you can't figure out which side the call bump is on, what you want to do is the shortest reed will always go to the bottom, the longest reeds will go on top. There'll be a latex stack there. It'll be either 2 reeds, 3 reeds, or 4 reeds, just like I said. The longest reed will always go on top towards the roof of your mouth. The shortest reeds will always go on the bottom towards your tongue. All right, now it's time to put the call in your mouth. An easy way, and actually Tori taught me this. I've seen him demonstrate at shows and stuff, teaching beginners how to use the call, is to put the call on your thumb, just like this, and place it in the roof of your mouth. Remembering the call bump will always go down. Just place it in the roof of your mouth, like that. This is what it looks like in your mouth. This should be the proper call placement right here. As you can see, in the roof of my mouth, the open end of the horseshoe call, the latex, will be facing outward. Okay, now if the call is in my mouth, I'm going to give you a howl, and that way you'll know what it's supposed to sound like, and I'll follow up with giving you some instructions on how I get that howl, where I put my tongue, what my mouth looks like, what shape it's in when I'm doing that howl. Here's a howl with the single reed, Pretty Deadly Howler. It's just a basic lone howl. Here's an up-close version of what my mouth looks like, what my tongue looks like when I'm doing that howl. I'm going to be up close to the camera, so the sound quality may not be as good, but I'll try to give you an up-close perspective of how I'm holding my mouth, where my tongue's at, and all that, so you'll know how to do that. Like I said, the sound quality may not be as good, but at least you'll see how I'm forming my mouth when I do this. When I howl, my tongue will actually look like this right here. The call will be setting, pretend this is the roof of my mouth right here. The call will be against the roof of my mouth. This is the tip of my tongue, and it will be almost like this right here. Call will be flat against the roof of my mouth, horseshoe open, as you can see. And that's the shape of my tongue when I'm making these howls. And I've heard there's actually been another instructional video or some instructional advice out. The guy was telling people to put your tongue against the back of your top front teeth. I don't like that sound. It gives you a too high-pitched and squeaky sounding howl for my liking. I'll give you an example of calling with your tongue against the back of your top front teeth and show you what it sounds like. There's nothing wrong with that. If you like that sound, like I said, it's just a real high-pitched and almost a squeaky sound to me. And I get some videos from some guys that want me to critique their sounds and stuff, and that's great. I love doing that. You guys send them away. Help you any way I can. But a lot of times, that's what they sound like. So I think they might have been watching that video or the instructional advice that guy gave or whatever. And I think that they want to know how to take that squeaky and that real high-pitched sound, or they get some breaks in their calls. I think that's what's happening to them. But it's hard to tell without being right there with someone and, you know, seeing exactly how they're using the call. I want to put my tongue against the back of my top front teeth and just demonstrate to you and show you what it sounds like. You get those real, I don't know, squeaky barks and real high-pitched squeaky howls out doing it that way. So hopefully my advice will help. Nothing against the guy doing the other instructional video. I'm sure he's a great caller, but I'm just going to, you know, trying to help you guys get that squeaky squeaky barks and that real high-pitched howl with the breaks in it out of your calling by doing my method. By using your tongue shaped just like this, call right here. This is the roof of your mouth. This is what it should look like. Now that we've learned to put the call in our mouth the proper way with the call bumped down, if you're using multiple reed calls, the longest reed on top, the shortest reed on bottom, or if you're using the single reed howler, and it works that way with all the howlers, the call bump always goes on the bottom. Now that we've learned that, we want to get proper fit to your mouth. Some guys, they have smaller palates, their mouths are narrower. Some guys are wider. If your mouth's wider, these calls will fit you perfectly, and they will fit 90% of people perfectly. But some guys need the calls trimmed down some. I like it personally. My mouth's a little wider, but I feel like I have a little more call control with the tape trimmed down just a little bit. I don't trim much at all, and I only trim on the sides. If you have a smaller mouth, you may need to trim all the way around, but remember, always try to keep the same curvature that the original call is. I always try to trim in that same half circle, keep the call curved right. You don't want to get a bunch of square edges or some jagged edges or anything like that. You won't get a proper seal with the back of your call. The tape part, this part right here, the soft part in the back, the rounded edge, will seal up against the back of your mouth. So you want to keep that rounded edge so it'll seal properly with the back of your mouth. When I'm trimming my call, I'll take a very, very small amount off the call. As you can see, as I'm doing right here, a lot of times I'll only trim off the side. Trim that side. As you can see, very, very small amount off that call. Start there. The good thing about it is you can always trim more. You can't add it back. So I'll go ahead and trim this. I kind of know already about where I usually trim my call at. So this is about how much I take off mine. Me personally, I don't trim any off the back. I'll trim it off the sides, as you can see there. Got a little off right there, just a little bit. I'll go ahead and straighten that cut up just a little bit. But that's the good thing about trimming them. You can trim them in very, very small amounts. That's the key to it. Like I said before, you can't add tape. You can always take a little more off. So start small, trim just a little bit until it fits your mouth. If you need to, you can go ahead and follow the curvature of the call back here. You can trim this, but just be sure to keep it that round horseshoe shaped shape to the call, and just to make sure it'll fit your mouth good. But whenever you're trimming, small amounts, very small amounts I suggest, and just keep testing and see what feels good. You can take it down even more than this. This is kind of what I like. I usually take probably this is maybe an eighth of an inch off the sides. That's what works for me. Everyone's mouth is different, so just start trimming a little bit, and you'll find a cut that works exactly for you. And if you trim these down, you still feel like they're a little too big for your mouth, give us a call. Send us a message on our website, on Facebook. We have youth frames available as well. They're special order, but it's a smaller frame, and hopefully that will work for you. Some guys have a really narrow palate, and the youth frames seem to work really well for them. Okay, we've learned how to put the call in your mouth, how to get it trimmed to fit your mouth correctly if need be, which, like I said, 90% of people don't need to trim the call. But if you need it, there's nothing wrong with trimming just a small amount of tape off this call. Now that we've got that, we'll learn to make a sound on the call. The first time you use this, you don't have to sound perfect. Just learn to get a sound out of these first. I promise it will come quick to you once you learn the mouth placement and how to get the higher pitch sounds, the lower, deeper howls. It will come to you very quickly. It's like riding a bike. Once you figure it out, it's like click. I mean, all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm an expert at this. But learning to make that first sound is sometimes hard for a lot of people. So what I recommend, just take what I told you earlier about putting the call in your mouth, trying to fit and all that. Put the call in your mouth and learn to make some sounds. I'll walk you guys through some of this and just show you some easy sounds to make with this call. And once you get those sounds, you can perfect them into your howls, your barks, your pup distress, your whimpers, and all that. Go ahead and put the call in my mouth. Got everything right, got my tongue right. Just start exhaling slowly until you start getting the sound. I put more tongue pressure, put less tongue pressure. It's a deep howl. What you're going to do is you'll find a happy medium in that. If you put too much tongue pressure, you're going to get a real high-pitched howl. If you don't put enough, you're going to get a scratchy, real deep howl and all that. You want to find that happy medium. Play with that until you get a howl that you think that sounds good and that you want to do. If you want to do a pup howl, you want a little higher pitched howl. If you want to do like an adult female, you want a medium pitched howl. If you want to do like an old male, you want a real deep, long howl. I'll run through those for you. If you want a pup howl, a lot of tongue pressure, this is what I'll do. That's a lot of tongue pressure on that call. If I want to say adult female, medium pressure, I won't put quite as much tongue pressure on that call, and you can tell the difference in this. Same calls I was using before. If you want a deeper sound out of that, put just less of the tongue pressure. You can tell all that from the sound. It all is determined by the tongue pressure you put on these calls. This single reed howler, it's not going to perform as well on the adult sounds such as adult female, adult male, or the old male. There's real deep howls. It's not going to perform as well as say the 3-4 reed howlers will. They'll give you a lot more control there. They'll be a lot deeper, and it'll sound a lot better when you're doing those older sounds. But for your pup howls, your younger coyote howls, this single reed, it'll fit you just fine. So if you got a call handy, just try putting it in your mouth. Remember, horseshoe goes out. Just try to make a sound. Just play around with the tongue pressures. Once you learn how to make that noise, you're 75% of the way there. That's the hardest part for a lot of guys that have never used a diaphragm call, is learning the proper technique to make these calls make noise. Once you do that, you've pretty well got it whipped. Then it's just fine tuning and learning to do the more advanced, higher pitch, lower pitch, the whimpers, the pup distress. But once you get that sound, you're on your way. Okay, now that we've learned how to do our howls, a lot of times what I like to do is throw a few barks on the beginning of that howl just to make it sound a little more realistic. A lot of guys have trouble with these barks. They're really not that hard once you know the proper technique to doing these. The call's placed in your mouth exactly the same way, except this is my tongue. If this is the roll of my tongue, the call will be placed a little more forward in my mouth than I did when I was howling. So to be placed almost like this. This is where my tongue is meeting the roof of my mouth. My call will be up here and just a little looser. You don't want a lot of tongue pressure on that call when you're doing your barks, so you get real high-pitched, squeaky barks. I'll show you a couple here with some real high, with a lot of tongue pressure on them. They don't sound that good. Sound real squeaky, almost like a little chihuahua or a little lap dog barking. Put it in my mouth, decrease that tongue pressure, tilt it forward to my mouth, and this is what it turns into. All I'm doing is blowing fast, hard, short bursts of air across that call. Like I said, this is your tongue right here. It's still rolled the same way I told you before. This is where the arch of my tongue meets the roof of my mouth. The call will be about right here. This will be where my teeth are, right here. So the call will be basically pretty loose hanging in there, and it's just short bursts of air. Try to get down your diaphragm, real short burst of air, get that good raspy coyote bark, and you'll have your barks no problem. A lot of guys, when I'm hearing sound clips from guys using these, when they send us to critique them, I can tell just by listening to them, they're putting way too much tongue pressure on the call. So that's what I'll try to tell them, is to tilt the call just a little further forward in their mouth, and that basically helps you eliminate wanting that tendency to put that tongue pressure on. Even if you put a lot of tongue pressure here on your tongue against the roof of your mouth, if you got it tilted forward, you won't be putting that tongue pressure on your reeds, and you won't get that squeaky bark. So hopefully that makes sense. The barks are one of the hardest things for guys to get, but like I said before, you can kind of relate it to riding a bicycle. Once you get it, you're like, man, that's pretty easy. You'll have it. So a little bit of practice. I'll run through those again just one more time. Putting the call in your mouth a little further forward in your mouth than you do when you howl, and you'll get those raspier barks. All right, I got those raspy barks. Everybody says, all right, I tilt the call forward. Now how am I going to go into my howl if my call's right here? After those barks, all you have to do is shift your tongue. You shift your tongue just a little bit, that call's going to roll back and then hit your tongue pressure, and you'll go right into your howls. I'll demonstrate. Your call's right here, bark, bark. Basically shift it, your tongue's right here, tongue pressure. Once you learn how to do this, it'll become like second nature. You'll have it in your mouth, you'll do it, bark, bark a couple times, then go right into your howl, finish out smooth, and you got it. But like I said, it is a two-step process of learning how to shift that call back to get your howl. But it's really not that hard, and hopefully with a little practice, you'll pick it up in no time. Hopefully now we've covered learning to put the call in your mouth, trimming it to fit, the proper tongue placement, how to adjust your tongue pressure on the call, learning to howl, learning to bark. Now all we need to talk about is proper care of your call after use. One thing about these cans is they are airtight, that's for sure. We package them that way for a reason that keeps the calls fresh, they won't dry out. But once you use them, every call, when they get wet in an airtight container, they could mold. It's not good on the latex. So a good thing to do to let your calls dry out after use is to poke some holes in the bottom of your can. I found this can, and it's real simple. Basically all I do when I get a can is I'll take the tip of my pocket knife, just stick it in, turn it a few times, poke 6-8 holes or something like that in it. You can dig a hole punch, you can dig a drill, anything. Just put 6, 8, 10 holes, it doesn't matter. Just as long as your can breathe, just let some air in there and breathe. And then after you use the call, when you get home, it doesn't hurt to run under some water, wash the call off, pat it dry with some paper towels, and before you stick it in the can if you're not going to be using it for a while. That's just good call maintenance, and it'll really help the life of these calls. And if you're not going to be using those calls for a while, I recommend storing them in like a cool, dark place. Where I keep mine is in the refrigerator. I'll do the steps I just said before. I'll wash the call off, I'll pat it dry, put it in the can. It's got some holes in it, so let it breathe. Let whatever moisture you didn't get by patting off, it'll let that escape. Let the call breathe, and you won't have any trouble at all with it. And if for some reason in the future your call gets dirty, or even if it's not, it's just good practice every month, 2 months, something like that. There's really no set time limit. Wash your call in some mouthwash. Let it set 5-10 minutes, something like that. Just pour you out a little cup or a little bowl of mouthwash. Put your calls in it, swish it around, let it sit there 5 or 10 minutes. And what that does, it'll kill all the bacteria on your call that comes from your mouth. Everyone's mouth, it doesn't matter who you are, you have bacteria in your mouth. I know nobody likes to think of it that way, but we all have it. It's just a natural part of things, and that will transfer to your call. Putting some mouthwash, alcohol will kill that bacteria, and plus, next time you use it, you'll have a minty fresh call to use when you go out coyote hunting. Hopefully, these are a few tips that'll help you out with care of your call. And like I said, I've used some of these calls. I've got some calls I'm using it's probably going on 3 years now. I'm using the same Howlers. So if you take care of your call, do all the steps I told you before, you'll get a long shelf life out of these. I mean, when you're looking at, $12 call, 3 years, that's pretty good compared to some of the other options out there for predator calling. Plus, you're going to sound like the most realistic sounding coyote caller out there using these MFK Diaphragm Howlers. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out our new hunting video series coming up late August 2015. We'll have hunts from all across the eastern U.S. It'll be up in your face. It'll be shotguns. It'll be bows. And we got some new surprises coming up too. So check us out. And thanks for everything, guys. And as always, MFK game calls. Sound better, kill more.